Hello viewers, welcome to Frontline Conversations. Today I'm delighted to have a special guest with me. I'm going to be in conversation with a Bengaluru-based Ghatam player called Sumana Chandrashekar, who's just published her memoir on her tryst with the Ghatam. This is the book, if you can see it. It's a very honest, a very sincere, a very moving account of her journey, of her temporal journey with the Ghatam, and if I can say, also her spiritual journey along with the Ghatam. I like the title, The Song of the Clay Pot, because it's apt for this very mellifluent and rhythmic memoir on Sumana's journey with this percussion instrument that has been marginalized in the world of Carnatic music. The book covers several aspects. It looks at some of the mythological origin stories of the Ghatam. It looks at the role of her gurus. It is evocative. It'll remind us of our own childhoods and our callings. It also looks at the physical manufacturing of the Ghatam, and linked to this is Sumana's apprenticeship with a family of traditional Ghatam makers in Manamadurai, which is a town famous for making Ghatams in Tamil Nadu. And most importantly, it looks at the Ghatam in the documented history of Carnatic music, and certain parts of it also with great searing honesty describe or reveal what it means to be a woman Ghatam player. So it's a great book. I enjoyed reading it very much, Sumana. Thank you for writing this book. I feel when I read it, I felt that this is the first of what are going to be many, many books on the Ghatam that you will write.
Thank you so much, Rikan. I'm delighted to hear that you liked reading the book, you enjoyed reading the book.
I did very much.
I enjoyed reading it. It's been a lovely process, a very transformative process, I must say.
The good thing is interviewing players, Ghatam players like you, musicians like you, or performers like you, is that rather than just have a conversation, it'll be interesting, it'll be fun for our viewers if you play something for us also. So do you want to start off by describing the Ghatam for us and playing something for us? I just wanted to read out for our viewers the simple but very powerful description of the Ghatam that you write. While most musical instruments are an amalgamation of various units such as strings, frets, resonators, bridge and skin, the Ghata, on the other hand, is a single homogeneous whole that is known simply by its parts, the belly, neck and mouth.
Yes.
Please, over to you.
Ghatam, as the viewers can see, this is just one whole. So like you have in guitars or sitar or the mridangam or any other instruments, is several components coming together. But this, as you can see, is just one single piece. This is the belly, this is the neck and this is the mouth. That's all it has. There are no attachments, no extra additional fixtures, nothing. Which is what also makes this instrument very special. I don't know if there are other instruments that are like this in the world, but this certainly, and it ultimately is just the pot, it's the pot that humankind has been using forever, from time immemorial, and it has also been with us human beings as a musical instrument from the time, I think, human beings settled down and started making pottery. This was the easiest instrument that was available to them, and they would just, one can imagine our forefathers, just sitting around a fire, making some music, singing in the evenings. So this has been the oldest instrument, and is also very, very prevalent in musical cultures across the world. Also in India, definitely in India, where folk music especially has the pot in all forms, some of them covered, some of them uncovered, some of them played in different ways, some held in different positions and played. So yes, this is a very special instrument, and here's a little bit of the music.
Wow. There is certainly sort of, the rhythms almost drew me into some kind of meditative mode. And you write about this, when you practice, it's almost like a meditation for you.
And there's a whole soundscape. One would think it's just such a simple instrument, but everywhere on the surface of the instrument, in different parts, there's a world of sounds that emanate from here.
Can you show us how? I mean,
sure,
to make us understand.
And it also depends on what part of the hand or the wrist you are using on which part of the instrument. So it could be as strong as this.
So you're using your palm in that.
I'm using my palm. I could use my fingers. This is a different sound, and it also depends on how your fingers are trained or the weight on each finger. This sound would be different from this sound. I obviously had less power on this one than this one, so that also makes a difference. This sound, this is a different sound. These are different sounds. This is a different sound. This is a different sound, and this.
Wow.
And one can, as you go down, this is another sound. So the more time one spends with the instrument, I think it just reveals many more sounds that it holds. And of course, there are artists today who also play inside the instrument. So yeah, it's an entire world.
Thank you for that. So while reading your book, in one of your early chapters, you write rather beautifully about how the Ghatam called to you in a dream, right? Can you describe that for us? Because that's a very charming part of your book.
Without exoticizing the idea of calling, I just like to, this is my reflection, that the society that we live in today is all about how brilliant one is, how smart you are, how intelligent. So it's all, a lot of it is cerebral, and the more thinking you can do, the more of intellectual work you can do. You're considered like to be a success in society, and there's so little that importance that as a society we give to what your heart is saying, and many of us who follow callings, who follow our heart, and who veered off into different directions, into uncharted territories, are sort of looked down upon by a lot of people around us, saying, this is not going to really fetch you mostly money, success, and all of that. But the reason talking about the calling is important is also to foreground and put back into the forefront the fact that it's important for us to follow our hearts. And that's the whole reason I spend a little time talking about this big. And this is not, it's not peculiar to musicians alone. Everybody has a calling. Maybe somebody like you has a calling to be a writer. Somebody wants to be a tennis player. Somebody wants to do farming. All these are callings. And what I'd like my readers to reflect on is also that maybe just look within and see if there's a calling. And often, because of the noises that we have around us, the voice of the heart tends to get suppressed.
Well, how did you get the call? It came to you in a dream.
It came to me in a dream, and
which is special. Yes,
it is special. Maybe a lot of people also didn't get it in their dreams.
It almost sounds divine.
Sort of, but I don't know. Now that it's happened, sometimes to mystify that also, I feel I must not do it, because many people may be getting dreams like that. But the point is, how do you respond to that dream? Dream is, of course, a lot of people get. I also get, dreams to hike up the Himalayas and whatever. There are many things. But how do you respond to the dream? Are you just pushing it away, saying, this is just another dream? Or are you actually taking that one moment's pause and saying, hey, let me look at something that's happening. Is my body asking for something? Is my path carved out for something else, and am I doing something that's not me? So these are the things that I hope a lot of people will be able to reflect on. So in my case, I did have dreams, and this was around 2008 sometime. I'd feel, when I'm lying down at night, I'd feel my fingers are moving on my belly. I sensed petrichor. I would hear the sounds which are particularly this instrument only. It's not even an instrument, it's just the sounds of a matka. It's the sounds of a pot. And like everybody would do in the first few months, I said this must be hallucination. It can't be true and all that. But luckily, I had a few people around me who said, no, you must follow. There's something that's happening here. And that, I think, is special. If I didn't have those people around me, maybe like everybody else, I would say, this is not going to happen. And also, I was late in my 20s when I started learning the instrument. That is something, it's not a common thing in classical music, at least. People pick up instruments in the 4 and 5 and you become a prodigy and you have your, it's a trodden path. You know how the story unfolds. But to pick up an instrument so late in your life and to have that instrument completely take over you, I think that has been very special to me, and I'm very humbled to have had that journey.
Thank you for sharing that experience with us. That is very rare for someone in their late 20s to pick up a new instrument in a classical field. And for this, your gurus were very important to you. You write quite poignantly about how your guru Sukanya Ramgopal sheds 2 tears while imparting the first lesson to you, right? And she says, when you ask her, profoundly affected by this, why are you crying? And she says, for 35 years I was waiting for a woman student, you're here now. What a moment. And so that sort of, so my next question will be on this, the role of your gurus. Your guru is Sukanya ma'am, as you call her. And Sukanya ma'am's guru is the legendary Vikku Vinayakram. And you've sort of been associated with him also in a way. You've benefited from his tutelage, from his grand patronage in a way, his shadow. So if you can talk about the role of your gurus and a little bit about why did Sukanya ma'am had to wait for 35 years for a female student?
This is really the moment that changed my life in many ways. And I'm asking the same question. Even to this day, I'm asking the question, why did somebody as accomplished as her have to wait for these long years for a woman student? And there are many, of course, now that you look back into history, I've also had been in this field for some time. There are some pointers to this, and a few of which I have discussed in the book, of course. The fact that percussion is considered such a male space. Even when one is talking about a percussion guru, the first image that would come to your mind is that of a male teacher. Nobody would instantly go to a woman teacher and say, teach me percussion. So for 35 years, I'm wondering if people were, when they chose percussion, their first choice was to go to a male teacher. Which is why she did not have students for so many years. Versus, had she been a teacher who taught singing or taught a melodic instrument, I don't think this would be the situation. She would have had a flood of students come to her, because she's really senior, and why would they not take benefit of that opportunity? So the fact that we also have categorized and created this kind of an image of percussion teaching, percussion learning, transmission, it's a very macho space, I must say. Maybe it is one of the big reasons is this, which is why she had to wait. But the moment is, of course, I remember it like it was yesterday, which is why I also say that in some ways we were both looking for each other. So that's why I say the thirsty look for the water, but the water is also looking for the thirsty.
Such a beautiful way to describe this very fortuitous meeting. Do you remember the first lesson?
Yes, of course I do.
Can you show us?
I was thinking, everything when you go to music class, it's your right hand that is dominant, and we keep talam with your right hand. Even if one is a left-hander, I've known teachers saying, no, shift to your right hand. So the right hand culturally is a very dominant practice. But here, I go ta on my left hand. This is the first lesson. Ta, di, tum, and li. So it's just that, two notes on this side and two notes on this side. But when you're continuously playing it, it's sort of a circular movement. Ta, di, tum, dan, ta, di, tum, dan. And you keep going. And it creates a certain circularity in that, which I love. What is also beautiful about the Ghatam is there is no real dominant hand or the serving hand in some sense. Both hands are sort of mirrors, and therefore it's like an ambidextrous thing. What you do with the right, you do with the left. What you do with the left, you do with the right. I love that balance also, which the instrument brings into my body. Even though my body might not be looking at, we always talk of the master limb and we're constantly using that. But in this instrument, you're sort of, the instrument is asking you to do something with your left hand which you've never done before, So that I really enjoy. And there are some spaces where the left becomes, like in my home for instance, the left is dominant and the right has to work hard to match that sound. So I'm not very confident with this. I need a lot of practice. Versus my right finger, this sound is so powerful. This I have to work for. So they balance each other, they train each other, they support each other. I love this. I really love this.
So as a woman, you chose to embark on this journey to learn the Ghatam, which is unusual in its own way, but a double layer of sort of marginalization comes because the Ghatam itself, as you write, as you uncover through your research, has been marginalized in the history of Carnatic music. But as you also reveal, this is more of a modern development, right? Maybe a mid 20th century onwards. So in a way, it's doubly, as a woman Ghatam player, you're doubly marginalized. As a percussionist, usually it is not felt that a woman will be a percussionist, but you've chosen to do that with an instrument that is marginalized. Why don't you talk a little bit about this, how the Ghatam came to be marginalized? In a kacheri, when you sit, so the Ghatam is right outside of the semicircle, as you write. Yes.
This is interesting. Like I've said, the pot is such a fabulously versatile instrument. You don't need anything else. It hardly needs any maintenance. There's no upkeep of the instrument that you have to regularly do. So it's really versatile, and it's all weather. So whether I'm sitting in an AC hall or I'm sitting in a really sultry place, hot and sultry, or whether it's sort of there's water that's spilled on it or goes through fire, nothing affects the instrument really, and that makes it really powerful and versatile. Which is why in folk music it has always been used. So around the middle of the 28th century or the 19th century, around the middle of the 19th century, when the Ghatam is supposed to have come into Carnatic music, the Mridangam and the Kanjira were already present, And what is interesting is the dynamics between these instruments. Now the Mridangam is becoming more and more powerful in a kacheri, and it has also been now termed as the king of percussion instruments for various reasons which I've described at length in the book, the construction of the idea of the Mridangam. I must add that the Mridangam itself is a beautiful instrument, the many tones, and of course C.V. Raman has, he loved this instrument, was one of his favorites. He did so much work on it, talking about the microtones, etc. So the Mridangam itself is quite a versatile, beautiful instrument. But I'm only talking about the way we construct the idea of what is more powerful and what is less powerful. And these to me are interesting socio-political processes. And there are various factors around it that contribute to something like this. Now, long story short, the Mridangam is a double-sided drum which has skin on both sides and it's flat. So is the Kanjira. It is held with one hand, flat skin head drum. But the Ghatam, as you can see, is materially very different. Structurally, it's very different. It's round, it has no skin on it, it's plain hard earth. Now, to have the Mridangam pedagogy simulated or brought on to the Ghatam is a little bit, must have been a little bit of a stretch, I must say, because naturally your fingers are curving in a certain way when you place that to begin with, and then of course there are other challenges to it. So this is what I feel must have happened, which sort of the remnants of which continue to this day, is that there is obviously historically a tension between the Mridangam and the Ghatam. Not so much with the Kanjira, because the Kanjira is very similar, so that was co-opted into the Mridangam pedagogy. But this did pose some challenges to the way the Mridangam pedagogy was being transmitted. So people were using a lot of chenda techniques, for instance. So this roll, for example, this is a very, it's a technique that when the chenda players are playing with their sticks and going trrr, that kind of a thing is taken from there. Or for instance, these techniques or this technique, which this is very special to the Ghatam. You don't have a technique like this on any other instrument. So because of the nature of this instrument and because of the fact that it needed a different approach, it obviously created some kind of a conflict between the instruments, which possibly led to the sidelining of the Ghatam and the creation of this two tired seating positions on stage. It's fascinating to me how these how these political social processes play out in the way a concert setting is done. So that has obviously led to some sort of a marginalization of the instrument. And when it comes to a woman playing it, of course, there's no need to exaggerate that. Already there is one level of marginalization with the Ghatam, and then for a woman to be sitting behind the Ghatam, this is something that everybody will understand. So there is a sort of a double marginalization, which my guru has gone through. There's any number of challenges she's faced in her life. And of course, I go through it too. Not in the same way that she went through so many years ago, but the situation hasn't changed a lot, I must say. And hopefully, with a lot of other women percussionists coming up, maybe there's going to be a change in this scenario. Let's hope for it.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's been several decades since your guru, Sukanya ma'am, embarked on her career, and you say that things haven't changed vastly. But yes, let's be hopeful. Hopefully your shishyas at some point will not be giving an interview about how the Ghatam is marginalized and how it feels to be a woman Ghatam player. Well, another interesting chapter or a couple of chapters in your book are about the manufacturing of Ghatams. You identify 3 towns historically in southern India where Ghatams were manufactured. And you write about what I would describe your apprenticeship in Manamadurai. And you write that your experience here, your 10-day stint here, where you worked with the clay, with your hands, and with Meenakshi auntie, the grandmother, changed you as a person. Can you talk about this experience?
Surely, Vikar. This is also something that's very close to my heart. Normally, as artists, we are obsessed. I have to say, we are obsessed with our art making, our music. It's all about us. And with social media, I think it's exaggerated even more. But it's at some point, I think, as artists, all of us must just look back and see who are the people that made it. This is the question that really led me to the makers. There was one point I woke up one morning saying, what is this thing that is sitting on my lap? Where does this material come from? Who made it? What are the places where that source this material? So all these very basic fundamental questions were what led me to Manamadurai, and I got this opportunity to spend 10 days, of course, but in these last 15-16 years I've had so many opportunities to spend enough time with them, and they are family to me. Meenakshi Amma was very, very special. I've talked at length about her in the book, and I can go on about her. She's so special to my journey. This interaction or this relationship that I built with the family over the years, I think it does something to me as a human being, as a musician, because every time.
So the skill of manufacturing remains only with this one family now in Manamadurai?
Currently, it does. Which is again a conundrum I talk about. Are the makers or any traditional artisans, are they actually willing to democratize it and open out the making practices to people who are not within the family? Is there any merit to that, or is there merit to keeping it within the family? These are the larger questions which would apply to a lot of traditional artisanal crafts communities as well. Currently, the making is something that is taught only within the family, and I have been fortunate to be able to get into the family and also partake of this transmission that is happening, which is very special, and it's been a great privilege for me. But it makes a big difference, Vika, to know what has gone, the labor that has gone into the making of the instrument, and then for me to be sitting on stage or even in my practice sessions, just to know what is there, the people that are there in it, the material that is there in it, the places that have contributed, that makes a big difference. It makes it so invaluable. Otherwise, it's just an object. And there is no relationship between me and the instrument. But knowing this it makes the music very, very special. And that is why in the book I spend so much time talking about the people.
And you accompanied Meenakshi Amma when she won the Sangeet Natak Academy Award.
Yes.
That must have been a special moment.
Very special, to watch her walk the red carpet and to receive that award was truly something. And because, she had also many years ago told me that, we women are never acknowledged for what we do. And for me, it came a full circle back. And here she was receiving this big award. It meant a lot to me personally. And of course, it was so lovely being with her. Sukanya ma'am was with me. Ramesh was there. So all of us to be with her as she received the award was truly, truly special.
So I see that you're wearing a very elegant looking cream colored turban. But this also is not a mere aesthetic choice. You arrived at this very thoughtfully, as you write in the book, after a rather gut-wrenching experience where you turned away from a concert. So can you tell us how you came up with this sartorial accompaniment?
Sure. So, Vika, now that I look back, I think within India, we have any number of headgears, beautiful, all of them, and across different regions, it's lovely. But I think as Indians, we are also very sensitive about headgears. One is that most headgears are made for men. There are very few that women wear. Almost, I can't think of any immediately. But of course, the covering of the head by women is also something that's very sensitive. There are regional differences in the way this is seen and read and meaning is made of them. For instance, women covering their heads in the north of India is a common practice. In the south of India, it's not. It's quite inauspicious to cover your head. And every time I've gone into different kinds of religious spaces, I'm either asked to cover my head or I'm asked to take off my headgear. So I find the headgear is such a sensitive thing in the Indian cultural sphere. So when I started off, I've always worn a headgear since I was a child. I've always covered my head, and this would create, especially when I'm performing on stage, this would create some sort of a discomfort for people who were watching me, and obviously they didn't like that I was covering my head. And there have been several unpleasant experiences, and there have been several people advising me on what I should do, what I should not do, all of that. But currently, I think it's a fascinating space for all of us to just look. We of course take a lot of time to decide how we want to dress our bodies, face down. But the headgear is something that one needs to look at, I think. Anyway, so I did come up with this particular kind of turban that I'm wearing now after a lot of experiences, after a lot of thought. And now I feel this is my skin. I feel absolutely comfortable in it. I feel actually proud. One of the things that I've heard from people after they've seen me wearing this is, I don't know what it is like in the north, but in the south of India, this would be a typical sort of turban that's worn by storytellers. right? And there's also been a very famous woman storyteller, like a harikatha performer, who used this kind of a headgear. And people now ask me, are you a harikatha performer? And I say, no, I'm a katha performer. I'm a storyteller. And I love the fact that my turban gives me the persona of a storyteller, and why not? I love telling stories, whether it's my story, it's other people's stories. But if all it takes for me to become a storyteller is a turban, then I'm happy to do that.
Well, it looks beautiful on you. So great choice.
Thank you.
We're moving towards the end of this interview, and I wanted to talk about the last moving chapter of your book, right? About when you contract COVID. That was really a worrying kind of moment for me. So you contract COVID, you describe the experience in the hospital, very moving experience, and then you recover, but you're physically weakened completely. And then you take 343 days to gather the fortitude to pick up the ghatam and play again. As you write, slowly, my body and my ghata were back in each other's embrace. Two broken pots in a delightful dance. Very eloquently put. And the COVID experience awakened the warrior spirit within you. So, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, surely. This is also one of my favorite things to talk about. That as musicians, often we invisibilize our bodies. Everything that the body is going through, it could be just the strain of traveling to a particular place. Does that reflect in your playing that evening, or do you mask that vulnerability of the body and try even harder to compensate for it? Of course, as artists, we are all trained to mask many of these things. A concert space is very sacred. What has gone before is not something that you talk about. Whether you had a sleepless night, you had a fall, you cut your finger, none of these matters to the audience, right? So you just go up, you perform, and you come up. What happens backstage is an untold story. But I think for me, it's important it was important when I was writing to foreground this very intimate, special relationship that the body has with the instruments that we play. What is the conversation that's happening? What are the negotiations that we're making, that the ghatam is making for me and I'm making for my ghatam? These were important. And so when COVID hit me, that was the first time I sort of realized that, everything that I'd taken for granted, the body, the hands, the strength, the movement of the fingers, everything in one shot is completely destroyed. And how do you then rejuvenate yourself? How do you get back to that space? It's like coming down the snake and ladder board from 100 to 1 or 2 or something. So to rebuild the body is almost like taking baby steps again, and you have to walk the full path again. It's important to take that journey. There's no way you can't make that journey, right? You'll have to go back. Maybe something else will break us down, bring us back from 100 to 20. You still have to trek up. So this is something that could happen with a lot of us musicians, this going up and down, which is important, I think, that we talk about it. So if you look even in the book, many things that are about the body, even including the way the body is shaped, the inscriptions it leaves on my hands and fingers, all that I've tried to foreground, because these are not usually spoken about. We push them under the carpet saying, this is the ugly stuff. But COVID brought me to that awareness. And COVID also enabled me to own my body in whatever transformed state it is currently. It's gone through that experience, and of course, When you've gone through a bodily experience, you cannot not be transported. This body is not the same body that existed before COVID. So how do I own this body and still have a renewed communication with my instrument? So these were important questions for me, which is why I spoke about it. I was in two minds. I didn't know whether this was an important thing to talk about. But finally, when I decided to write about it, I said this is indeed something that everybody would be able to connect to in our own spaces. Our bodies go through so much, and how can we bring those experiences rather than masking them, invisibilizing them? Can we bring the frailties of that into what we are doing? I may not be today able to play, the kind of with the robustness that I was playing 4 years ago, but it's okay for me. I own this body and I celebrate this body. So that was forbid for me, and it brought me to a very delicate body realization, which I am truly thankful for.
Thank you, Sumana. I'm sure I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure viewers who will watch it will love this very candid sort of conversation that you've had built around your book. Do you want to leave us with some beautiful music that you're going to play for us for a couple of minutes, and then we can finish the interview?
Sure. Thank you, Vikara. I've enjoyed having this conversation with you as well. So here's some.
Can you describe it for us, what you're going to play?
Because I've talked about the feminine space of playing, let me try and see. Now, this is a search. I cannot say that I have sort of got that feminine sound of the Ghatam, but it's been my constant search, and I'll try. This is only an attempt, but let's see. Because I'm not going to do the robust stuff, but let's.
Thank you, Sumana, for that wonderful, wonderful segment. It was truly melodious and very, very beautiful. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of Frontline. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vikar. And thank you, Tranquil.